There's an age, has a famous name called terrible twos. There must be a reason why we call it terrible twos. First of all, is such a thing exist, and why do we call it, if it is true, terrible twos?
We call it the terrible twos because the behavior of your once lovely, compliant, interesting, increasingly verbal young 1.5-year-old becomes a turbulent, acting out, very active, often resistant to kinds of things that you want them to do, young boy or girl. And it feels pretty terrible because they're not listening to you in places that you really would like them to listen to, like supermarkets or theaters or something like that. So, but it's not terrible, actually. It's an important developmental leap on the part of the young child. That independence, that moving off from being directly dependent on the parent, making some of their own decisions, exploring their universe, is all part of that growth spurt of 2. So it's really a positive statement, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to deal with. But don't view it negatively. Take it as a positive, but then figure out ways to deal with it when it is happening, and it happens very predictably.
Should you approach some of the problems with a positive reinforcement type of approach?
It's a balancing act. There are some things that a 2-year-old will want to do that are clearly dangerous. That's not allowable. Running across the street, getting on a tricycle and moving across the street into dangerous circumstances. That's just not permitted, and those clearly have to be laid out firmly and reinforced firmly. But then there are lots of other things that could be done that are okay, that are not going to sort of tax the system that much, and you should allow those things to happen. And when they happen in ways that are both okay for the child and don't disrupt and are not upsetting any other place, that should be reinforced. You know, terrific, it did that really great. And that's the way the balancing act should proceed. It's not smooth, though, and there are times where some days will be good and some days will be bad. Some people in literature, and I have referred in our child care book to this, as the first adolescence, because that's really what it is. Sometimes they're very dependent, very much want you to hold their hand crossing whatever. And then the next time they're like running ahead and not listening, etc. And that's typical of what adolescents do. They're sort of holding tight sometimes and then running away at other times as they go through their adolescent growth spurt. Got a lot of similarities to the 2-year-old, but it's not bad.
One, I think, bad treatment some people do, sometimes they give them antihistamines to calm a kid down on their own. Is that a good practice or a bad practice?
Children should not be medicated for being developmentally appropriate, and that's what the 2-year-old acting out time is. Antihistamines are good only if you have an allergy of some kind, and that can take away some of that allergy. But please, don't use medications like that for these kinds of behavioral things, which really are normal. That doesn't mean I understand that they are easy to deal with. And some kids have it more so than others. I mean, our oldest child did not really act out that much as a 2-year-old. The middle one, our daughter, was wild. And we had to really set limits with her in ways that were realistic. And that happens, too, within families. But medication has no place when it comes to dealing with this particular issue.
There's no relationship to terrible twos and hyperactivity down the road. Every kid seems to be a little bit just in the waters and two. Is that true?
Testing the waters is part of being 2. They are going to challenge you, again, just like they are going to when they're teenagers. That challenge is asserting their own independence. I like to say that the 2-year-olds are tough, independent. 3-year-olds are often a little quieter, a little sort of more placid as they get to play with other kids in school and they can interact better. 4 often gets to be very disruptive again, except they have more language and they can use sort of potty language and stuff that you really don't want them to say. It doesn't last that long, but the 4-year-old acting out can be even more tumultuous than the 2-year-old. And then at 5, they go to kindergarten and things sort of quiet down markedly as they start to relate to peers, and you, the parent, are no longer the center of their universe. So please be aware of those different stages. It's totally normal and fun as long as you can step back and not react.